Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and the ACRU Action Fund. And welcome to another episode of Live Free TV. You know, this past week, we just saw the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, give an address, a speech to the joint session of Congress. Not exactly the State of the Union speech, because he's only been in office for 43, 44 days, but an incredible 43 to 44 days. And we are seeing a shift in the state of our union, our constitutional republic. And I think when President Trump started out, he said, America is back. America is back with looking at its economic security, its energy security, its national security, its strength when it comes to foreign policy. And it's a complete turn from where we have been in the past 4 years. But there is something that I do want to issue as a bit of a warning or a heed or something to pay attention to is we have had these executive orders and executive actions. But the thing is, we live in this constitutional republic and we're supposed to be governed. We cannot be ruled by actions, orders, edicts, mandates, and decrees. So it's very important that the Republican Congress does exactly what the Congress is supposed to do, pass these things into law so that he can sign it and it becomes something that is solidified and concrete, not something that can just be passing based upon a new president, or what we have seen happen so often, the pendulum swinging, and you get a different president. You know that a lot of the things that President Trump did, especially with our border early on in his administration, President Joe Biden changed it by executive order and executive action. And I think that brings up a great point when you talk about legislation and passing laws as opposed to executive actions. Remember how Kamala Harris during the election was talking about how Donald Trump was undermining border security because he stood in the way of a border legislation, a piece of legislation being passed? I think that President Trump had a great line when it came to the issue of border security.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
How important that is to understand. Because so often we get told that we need to have this new law and that new law. But why don't we just enforce the laws that are on the books? And so when you look and see what is happening with our border, when we're going from, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 border encounters per day, now we're down to the lowest we have ever seen in the modern tracking history of the United States of America, maybe a couple of hundred, some places even less than that per day. And so it is not about having to pass new legislation. And that's one of the things that we always get told by members of the House and the Senate. We need this new bill. We need this piece of legislation. No. How about we just go back to the Constitution? How about we just go back to the things that are there on the books? How about we just enable our agencies and organizations like Immigrations and Customs Enforcement to do exactly what they're supposed to do, enforce the law and enforce the sovereignty of the United States of America? When you see now that ICE has had an incredible amount of increase of their deportations, their raids, and their operations, why is that happening? Because you got a president that came in and said, do your job. What is very disturbing, and we saw that this past week also, when you had these mayors from quote unquote sanctuary cities, and let's understand something. There is no such thing as a sanctuary city, because you cannot give sanctuary to people that are committing a crime. If you are doing that, you're in violation of law as well, and you are aiding and abetting criminal activity. I saw the response from the Boston mayor, I believe her name is Michelle Wu, when she was asked about this whole issue of sanctuary cities. And she basically said that states and local municipalities cannot be forced to comply with the federal government. Well, obviously, Ms. Wu has never read the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Section 1 of the Constitution, where it says that when the federal government, the United States, they are operating and doing things in pursuance thereof to the Constitution, to our rule of law, they are the supreme law of the land. And I don't understand how anyone at a local jurisdiction like Ms. Wu, the Mayor Wu of Boston, or Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, can come back and believe that they can disavow federal law, which, of course, in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, it says very clearly in what is known as the Guarantee Clause that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the union to protect them from invasion. When you have millions of people coming across the border illegally, first and foremost, that's a felony crime. And then when they're committing crimes as well, that's criminal illegal immigration, double penalties. They have to be deported, they have to be removed. And of course, the fear mongering that is out there about children being afraid to go to class or go to school, that's not what this is all about. This is about making sure that murderers, rapists, child rapists, and others are not freely operating here in the United States of America. It's about making sure that a violent Venezuelan gang that, really focuses on, sex trafficking, Trinidad is not operating in the United States of America. And so I think, again, that line was so important. You just needed to have someone that will stand up for the Constitution, stand up for the laws. We have a new president, and therefore you see what is happening. But another thing that I want to talk about as a result of this address to the joint session of Congress, there's a lot of trepidation going on about this thing called tariffs. Now, I believe in having free trade, but I think trade also has to be fair. And I believe what President Trump is trying to do is say, why should the United States of America be a patsy? Why should the United States of America say, here, you can just freely come and dump your goods and services here into the United States of America, but you put up these roadblocks, these obstacles, this thing called tariffs and taxes on goods and services that are seeking to go into the United States of America. Great case in point. I'm a pretty decent little motorcycle rider, and Harley Davidson, do you know what the tariff is for Harley Davidson to sell their motorcycles in India? It's 100%. So think about this. If you have a nice Harley Davidson motorcycle that goes for $30,000 or $35,000 in India, that's a $60,000 to $70,000 motorcycle. That hurts them getting into that market to provide that motorcycle. So why should we not have a fairness that is there? And that's what President Trump is talking about. Roll the tape.
April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that, too. They don't even allow us in their market. We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer.
And I think what we have to understand is that this is really about getting more production and manufacturing here in the United States of America. Look, when we once granted China the most favored trade nation status, we thought that if we allowed them into the World Economic Body, that this communist country would, see the light, have a road to Damascus moment and change their ways. That didn't happen. But the Communist Chinese Party understands is that we can flood the world, especially the United States of America, with our cheap goods. And we can use capitalism as a means by which we prop up our communist ideology. And also we build up our military so that we can have an extension of our global hegemonic designs. And that's what the One Belt, One Road strategy is all about. So what President Trump is looking at is, how do you use your economic national power, that aspect thereof? There are four elements to a nation's power. It's called the DIME theory: diplomatic, information, military, and economic. How do we use that economic power of the United States of America to strengthen us and to undermine the economies of some of our adversaries? Of course, China being our number one geopolitical foe. And the exact same thing with our energy security. How do we get back to producing, consuming, and exporting our energy resources, especially our liquefied natural gas, to undermine some of those adversaries out there like Iran or even Russia? I mean, why would the Europeans want to be connected to Russia with a pipeline when they could come to us and get those energy resources. And that takes away the ability of someone like a Vladimir Putin, a very vicious dictator, to go out and invade more countries, as we've seen him do with Moldova, with Georgia, and with Ukraine. So I think that it's very important that we understand the strategic perspective that President Trump is using with these tariffs. It's a leveraging tool. And look, if these other countries want to be fair, let's just go 0 for 0. We have open access to their markets, and they have open access to our markets as well, instead of us doing the tit for tat, 20 to 20, 25 to 25. But what this does require, it requires resilience of the American people, because too often what we like is the immediate gratification. We don't like any pain or, whatever. But we need to get to the point where we understand that we can outlast some of these other countries that don't think in just 2 or 4 year election cycles. They think in 50-year cycles or even 100-year cycles. And that's the important thing about us here in the United States of America, and understanding this economic tool that President Trump is trying to use. So the border is secure. We're making ourselves stronger economically. We're saying that we're no longer going to be a patsy. And we're also converting people that, well, the left used to like. Let's listen to Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez and some of the things that she is saying about those really bad, mean tech folks.
The worst sin that can happen is that you accidentally gave someone health care. You accidentally let someone see a doctor. And that is like a crime, because why? And before people say we don't have the money for it, we don't quote unquote have the money for a better and improved social safety net, because we let like Elon Musk gut Medicaid and gut Social Security in order for him to pay for his own tax cuts, and B, his own $1 billion in private federal contracts. This guy takes billions and billions of your tax dollars, of your public funds, and it's not just Elon. All these guys, a lot of these tech guys that were standing behind Trump at the inauguration, a lot of tech talks about themselves as tech, but they're really just defense contractors. They're the new Boeing. They're the new Lockheed Martin. They're defense contractors. And they are robbing us of the tiny slivers of what we have left in our collective public social safety net.
First of all, it's Lockheed Martin. I don't know where Martin comes from, but I digress. It's very interesting to me that all of a sudden the people that the left used to praise and love, Elon Musk and electric vehicles, all these other tech giants, that they were leveraging to censor free speech of constitutional conservatives or people that didn't believe in this whole COVID issue, or to speak about other means by which Americans could actually help themselves as far as their medical conditions, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. Now, all of a sudden, because they don't want to line up with the left, they're upset about it. It's interesting how they turn on people so quickly. But let's go back and talk about what Ms. Ocasio-Cortez was initially speaking. Fraud, waste, and abuse is something that she, as a member of the United States House of Representatives, and she is on committees of oversight, they should be looking into these types of things. And first and foremost, I'm 64 years of age. I'm about to hit Medicare in a year. I want to make sure that that program is sustained. I don't want to see fraudulent claims that are being given money. And I want to root those things out, because if we do find that, if we streamline these programs, then guess what we can do? We can better take care of Americans. We can make sure that the right people are receiving assistance as far as Medicaid. and we can make sure that seniors are taken care of as far as Medicare. And when it comes to Social Security, I think that we do need to look at what is happening with Social Security. We should not have people on the Social Security rolls that, I don't know, 125 years of age, 150 years of age. Some of the antiquated means by which they are doing the monitoring of this system. We need to go away from analog. When you hear about floppy disks still being used. And oh, by the way, if you want to talk about Social Security, I think she failed to mention that the Social Security administrator of the Biden administration back after the election of November the 5th of 2024 signed an agreement with the American Federation of Government Employees, a government employees union, which I don't know why we have a union that is collectively bargaining with the American taxpayer dollar, because we are the ones that pay for federal government employees. Maybe that's a topic for another of our Live Free TV segments. But the thing is this: why would they sign an agreement saying that government employees can stay home for 5 years and never come back in? So those are the type of things that we are very concerned about. And it is amazing to me, and I really think that people like Ocasio-Cortez and other progressive socialists are upset because Elon Musk is showing that you're not doing your job as a member of the United States House of Representatives or a member of the United States Senate. When you're supposed to be conducting oversight over these agencies, you're supposed to be going over their appropriations. You're supposed to be looking at their budgets and saying, this doesn't make sense. Why are we spending American taxpayer dollars there? So that the mandatory spending side that we do have of these safety net programs are indeed a safety net program. It's not a hammock. It's not something that's being abused. So as we go forward and continue on in this early aspect of the Trump administration, number one, we've got to start passing legislation, signing things into law. Executive orders, executive actions are fine. We have to continue to protect our border and make sure that taxpayer dollars, like the $59 million that went to the city of New York so that illegal immigrants could be housed in 5-star hotels. I kind of think that some of that money could have gone to people in Western North Carolina who are still living out in the woods. Let's make sure also that we have some semblance of what we called in the military stick-to-itiveness, resiliency, resolve, to stand up and say to some of these other countries, we will not be economically bullied anymore. We want to have free access with the products and the goods and services that we produce here in America into your markets. It cannot be just a one-way street. Because when tolerance becomes a one-way street, it leads to cultural suicide. I don't think Donald Trump wants to see the culture, the economic standing of the United States of America go down the path of suicide. And last but not least, let's make sure we root out the fraud, waste, and abuse, because our taxpayer dollars should be going to make sure for the life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the property of the United States citizens. And again, I said the United States citizens. Those people that come here through the front door, those people who are naturally born here, not the people that come across our border legally. That's what Live Free is all about. That's what Live Free TV seeks to inform, educate, and activate you to understand. Until next time, God bless.